Have you ever wondered how to find true inner peace in the midst of life's chaos? Every day, we are pulled in different directions, burdened by expectations, attachments, and the weight of uncertainty. But there is a path, a timeless wisdom that has guided seekers for centuries. One that teaches us the art of letting go, of embracing life as it unfolds, without resistance. Buddhism offers us profound insights into the nature of existence, reminding us that what is meant for us will come in its own time. Through ancient parables and stories, we learn the power of detachment, not as indifference but as freedom, a freedom that allows us to live fully in the present without clinging to the past or fearing the future. Imagine walking through life with ease, no longer weighed down by worries, regrets, or desires that only lead to suffering. Imagine finding peace, not in controlling everything, but in surrendering to the natural flow of existence. A long time ago, a young monk was gifted a beautiful porcelain cup by his master. He cherished it deeply, carrying it with him everywhere, admiring its delicate beauty. It became more than just an object. It was a source of comfort, a possession that he felt defined a part of him. But one day, as fate would have it, the cup slipped from his hands and shattered into 1,000 pieces. His heart sank, a deep sadness consuming him. Sensing his distress, his master simply said, "That cup was already broken from the beginning." The monk stared in confusion, but slowly he began to understand. The cup, like all things, was impermanent. It was always destined to break. The moment it was created, its eventual end was inevitable. Clinging to it had only created suffering. This is the essence of detachment. It is not about being emotionless or cold. It is about understanding that everything in life is fleeting. How many times do we hold on to things, people, or situations out of fear of losing them? We clutch tightly to relationships that no longer serve us, to expectations that only bring frustration, to memories that keep us chained to the past. We convince ourselves that letting go means losing something valuable, but in truth, it is through letting go that we are set free. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from attachment. We cling because we seek security in a world that is constantly changing. But real security is not found in external things. It is found in our ability to accept impermanence. Consider the river. It does not cling to the water that flows through it. It simply moves with it, adapting, embracing, never resisting. Life is the same. The more we resist change, the more we suffer. The more we allow ourselves to flow, the more peace we experience. How many times has life taken something away from you, only to give you something even better? But in the moment, blinded by fear and attachment, we fail to see it. Detachment does not mean we stop caring. It means we love without possession. We enjoy what we have without becoming dependent on it. And when things change, as they always do, we are not shattered. We simply adapt, knowing that life continues. Once we learn to let go, we must also learn to embrace what life brings us without resistance. This is the path to true peace. One day a disciple approached his master and said, "Master, I suffer because life is not the way I want it to be." The master smiled and replied, "You suffer because you resist what is. Life is not here to please you, it is here to teach you." Acceptance is one of the hardest lessons to learn. It does not mean surrendering to pain or resigning ourselves to a life we do not want. It means seeing reality as it is without distortion, without filters. Why is this so difficult for us? Because our minds create endless stories about how things should be. We believe that if we fight hard enough, everything will fall into place according to our wishes. But life does not operate on our terms. Imagine standing on the shore, watching a great wave approach. You can scream at it, try to push it back, resist it with all your might, but the wave will still come. Or you can dive into it, allowing it to carry you without struggle. The same is true for life. Resistance only creates suffering. When we accept things as they are, we regain control, not over the external world, but over our own peace. There is a story of an archer, skilled in the art of precision. He can calculate the trajectory of his arrow with perfect accuracy. But there are always forces beyond his control. The wind, the movement of the target, the subtle shifts in the air. He can choose to be frustrated by these unpredictable elements, or he can adjust, adapt, and release his arrow with trust. In life, many things are beyond our control, but what is within our control is how we respond. Acceptance is not about giving up. It is about seeing clearly. When we stop wasting energy on things we cannot change, we are free to focus on what we can change. We often resist reality because we believe that acceptance means losing, but the opposite is true. Acceptance gives us power. It frees us from the weight of pointless struggle. It allows us to let go of what drains us and to embrace what is in front of us. The key is shifting our perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" That simple shift changes everything. It turns suffering into wisdom. It transforms pain into growth. And most importantly, it teaches us to trust. An old monk once lived in a quiet village. One day, a beautiful wild horse wandered into his garden. The villagers, amazed, said, "You are so lucky. A horse like this is a great treasure." The monk simply replied, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" A few days later, the monk's son tried to ride the horse, but fell, breaking his leg. The villagers exclaimed, "How terrible! What misfortune?" Again, the monk replied, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" Weeks later, war broke out, and all the young men in the village were drafted into battle, except for the monk's son, who could not go because of his injury. The villagers once again said, "You are so lucky." And once again the monk said, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" This story reveals a deep truth. Life unfolds in ways we cannot predict. What seems like a setback may be a blessing in disguise. What appears to be good fortune may lead to unforeseen difficulties. How often have you looked back at something you once thought was a misfortune, only to realize it led you to something better? Perhaps you lost a job you thought you needed, only to find a path that was more fulfilling. Perhaps a relationship ended and you suffered, only to later realize it was the best thing that could have happened to you. Life has a wisdom beyond our understanding. And when we trust its flow, we stop suffering over what we do not understand in the moment. Nothing is taken from us without reason. What leaves us does so because its time has ended. What comes into our lives arrives because we are ready to receive it. But to truly understand this, we need patience. We need an open heart. We need to stop labeling events as good or bad and instead trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. This is where real peace begins, not in control, not in resistance, but in surrender to the wisdom of life. There is a profound shift that happens when you begin to trust life instead of fighting it. When you stop labeling every event as either good or bad and instead accept that everything has a purpose, even if you can't yet see it. Think about the moments in your life when you felt lost, defeated, or disappointed. At the time, it may have seemed like life was unfair, like you were being punished. But later, when you look back, didn't it all make sense? Didn't you see how what you thought was a setback was actually guiding you somewhere better? Life is always moving, always shifting, always arranging things in ways we cannot predict. And the more we resist, the more we suffer. But when we let go, when we surrender to the flow of life, something incredible happens. We begin to experience peace. There is an old Buddhist story about a man walking in the forest. He came across a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. Feeling pity, he decided to help, carefully opening the cocoon to make it easier for the butterfly. But instead of flying, the butterfly's wings remained weak. Unable to develop the strength needed to fly, it never took off. What the man didn't realize was that the struggle to escape the cocoon was necessary. It was the very process of breaking free that strengthened the butterfly's wings. By trying to help, he had taken away the butterfly's opportunity to grow. How many times in life do we try to force things before their time? We rush outcomes, chase after things that aren't meant for us, desperately try to control every detail. But in doing so, we prevent the natural unfolding of our own growth. Trusting life doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part and then allowing things to unfold as they are meant to. Like a farmer who plants a seed, waters it, and then waits. He doesn't dig up the soil every day to check if it's growing. He simply trusts that, with time, it will sprout. And just like that farmer, we must learn to let go of the need to control everything. We must stop clinging to things that no longer serve us. We must stop fearing what's next and instead embrace the uncertainty with curiosity. Because in the end, What is meant for us will come, and what isn't will leave. But how do we cultivate this trust in life? How do we quiet the restless mind that always wants to know, to plan, to control? The answer lies in stillness. One day, a disciple approached his master in frustration. "My mind is restless here," he said. "I try to find peace, but the more I try, the more my thoughts overwhelm me." The master smiled and handed him a glass of water with dirt at the bottom. "Shake it," he instructed. The disciple did as he was told, and the water turned muddy. "Now wait," said the master. The disciple watched as, little by little, the dirt settled and the water became clear. "This is the mind," the master explained. "When you stop shaking it, clarity comes on its own." Meditation is one of the greatest tools for finding inner peace. It is not about stopping your thoughts. It is about learning to observe them without attachment, like watching clouds pass in the sky, acknowledging them but not clinging to them. In today's world, our minds are constantly bombarded with distractions, notifications, social media, endless news, worries about the future. We rarely allow ourselves a moment of true stillness, and yet it is in stillness that we find our greatest clarity. Scientific studies have shown that meditation reduces stress, improves focus, and even strengthens the immune system. But beyond the science, meditation teaches us something deeper, the art of impermanence. When you close your eyes and focus on your breath, you begin to notice something. Everything is temporary. A thought arises and then disappears. An emotion surfaces and then fades. Nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not pain, not anxiety, not sadness. Everything is in constant motion. And when you truly understand this, you begin to worry less. You begin to hold on less. You begin to suffer less. Many people say, "I can't meditate. My mind won't stop thinking." But meditation isn't about stopping thoughts. It's about watching them without becoming entangled in them. There is a simple meditation practice that anyone can do. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and then leaving your body. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to your breath. Don't fight your thoughts. Just let them come and go, like waves on the shore. Another powerful meditation practice is gratitude meditation. Every day, take a moment to reflect on the things you are grateful for. It could be something simple: the warmth of the sun, the taste of your morning tea, the presence of someone you love. This simple practice shifts your perspective. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you begin to see what's already there. Instead of clinging to what you don't have, you learn to appreciate what you do. And then there is the meditation of letting go. If something is weighing on you, an attachment, a regret, a fear, imagine holding it in your hands. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. With every exhale, picture yourself releasing a little bit of that weight. Let it drift away, knowing that you don't need to carry it anymore. It is a simple practice, but a powerful one, because most of our suffering comes from holding on to things that no longer serve us. As we make meditation a daily habit, something begins to change. We react less. We become more present. We find a quiet strength within us that cannot be shaken by the external world. And this presence, this stillness, is what allows us to truly trust in life. Because when we stop trying to control everything, we start to notice something incredible. Life has always been guiding us. The things we thought were losses were actually redirections. The moments of difficulty were shaping us into who we were meant to become. Nothing has ever truly been against us. It was all part of the process. The key is to surrender, not to give up, but to let go of the illusion that we are in control of everything. A disciple once stood by a river with his master. The water moved effortlessly around rocks, over obstacles, never resisting, only flowing. The master turned to his student and said, "Look at how the river flows. It does not fight the current. It does not resist. It simply moves forward." We too must learn to move like the river, to let go of resistance, to embrace change, to trust that everything happens in its perfect time. Because true peace is not found in control, it is found in surrender. And the moment you stop trying to control life is the moment you begin to truly live. There is a kind of freedom that few people ever experience, the freedom of surrendering to life, of flowing with it instead of against it. It is a quiet strength, a deep knowing that no matter what happens, you will be okay. Because the truth is, peace is not found in controlling the world. It is found in trusting yourself. Most people spend their lives grasping at relationships, at success, at the illusion of certainty. They hold on so tightly, afraid that if they let go, they will lose everything. But what if it's the opposite? What if the tighter we hold, the more we suffer? And what if true happiness comes not from clinging, but from releasing? Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, not because it's wrong to love, or to desire, or to care, but because when we attach ourselves to something, we give it the power to control our emotions. We say, I can only be happy if this person stays, or I can only be at peace if things go my way. And in doing so, we hand over our inner tranquility to forces beyond our control. But imagine for a moment if you didn't. Imagine if you could love without attachment, if you could appreciate what you have without fearing its loss, if you could embrace change instead of resisting it. This is what it means to flow with life. One day a disciple asked his master, how do I let go of control? How do I stop clinging to what I want? The master picked up a rock and threw it into the river. Watch, he said. The disciple observed as the water moved around the rock effortlessly, continuing on its path without hesitation. The river does not try to control the rocks, the master said. It does not stop because of obstacles. It simply moves forward. We too must learn to move forward, not by trying to force life into our expectations, but by trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. But how do we begin? How do we stop fighting the current and start flowing with it? It starts with letting go, not of action, but of attachment to outcomes. There is a Buddhist story about a man who was walking through the mountains when a storm rolled in. The wind howled, the rain poured, and the path became slippery. He was terrified. He kept trying to predict which way the wind would blow, trying to control where he placed his feet so he wouldn't fall. But the more he resisted, the more he stumbled. Then he saw a bird, effortlessly gliding with the wind, allowing it to carry him instead of fighting it. And in that moment, the man understood. He stopped resisting. He stopped trying to control every step. And instead, he allowed himself to move with the wind, to adapt, to trust. And just like that, the storm no longer felt like a battle. It became something he could move through with grace. This is the secret to living without suffering. Not avoiding challenges, but meeting them with flexibility. Not forcing things to happen, but trusting that when the time is right, they will. And in this trust, something incredible happens. We find peace. Because when you stop needing life to go a certain way, you start to experience it fully. You stop waiting for happiness to come someday and start seeing that it is available to you right now. You stop seeing change as loss and start seeing it as transformation. You stop fearing the unknown and start welcoming it as an adventure. And with this new perspective, your entire experience of life shifts. You become lighter because you are no longer weighed down by things you cannot control. You become calmer because you no longer resist what is happening. You become stronger because you are no longer ruled by fear. But perhaps most importantly, you become free. Because nothing, no event, no person, no challenge has the power to take away your peace unless you allow it to. One of the most powerful practices for cultivating this state of being is meditation. Not just sitting in silence, but truly training your mind to let go of attachment. Imagine a glass of water. If you pour ink into it and stir it, the water becomes dark, cloudy. This is the mind when it is restless, when it clings, when it resists. But if you let the water sit, the ink settles. The water becomes clear again. This is what meditation does for the mind. It teaches you to stop stirring, to allow your thoughts and emotions to settle on their own. And in this stillness, you begin to see clearly. You see that most of your worries were never real problems. They were just stories your mind created. You see that most of your suffering wasn't caused by what happened, but by your resistance to it. You see that everything, every joy, every pain, every moment is temporary, and that the only thing you truly have control over is how you choose to experience it. And once you understand this, you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop reacting impulsively to things that upset you. You stop letting fear dictate your choices. Instead, you begin to respond to life with wisdom, with patience, with trust. Because the more you let go, the more life begins to open up for you. Opportunities come more easily because you are no longer blocking them with resistance. Relationships become more fulfilling because you are no longer trying to control them. Challenges become less stressful because you no longer see them as problems, but as lessons. And this is where true happiness begins, not in acquiring more, not in controlling more, but in releasing what was never yours to hold on to in the first place. Because in the end, the river will keep flowing, the wind will keep blowing, the seasons will keep changing, and the only question is, will you fight it or will you flow with it? Because the moment you stop fighting life is the moment you begin to truly live. There is a quiet kind of power that exists in those who have learned to let go. They move through life with a lightness and ease, a deep knowing that whatever comes, they will handle it. They are not anxious about the future, nor burdened by the past. They have surrendered, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, because they understand something most people don't. The tighter you hold on, the more you suffer. But what does it really mean to let go? How do we release the need to control, the fear of change, the attachments that weigh us down? Buddhism teaches that true freedom comes from detachment, not as avoidance, not as cold indifference, but as a profound acceptance of the impermanence of life. Imagine walking through a garden filled with the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen. You could do one of two things. You could try to pick them all, desperately gathering as many as you can, fearing that if you don't take them with you, you'll lose them forever. But soon the flowers will wither in your hands, and what once brought you joy will turn into disappointment. Or you could simply walk through the garden, admiring its beauty, appreciating each flower without needing to possess it. You understand that they are meant to bloom and fade, that their beauty is in their fleeting nature, and because you do not cling, you are free to enjoy them as they are. This is the essence of non-attachment, to love, to appreciate, to fully experience life without trying to control or possess it. But most people live their lives like the first option. They cling. They try to hold on to things that are naturally meant to change. They resist the flow of life, and in doing so, they create their own suffering. A Buddhist monk once said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." Life will bring losses, disappointments, unexpected changes. That is unavoidable. But suffering, our resistance, our refusal to accept, our attachment to how we think things should be, that is a choice. A disciple once asked his master, "How can I stop suffering?" The master gave him a cup and asked him to hold it with both hands. "Now squeeze it tightly," the master said. The disciple did as he was told. At first it was fine, but after a while his fingers ached, his muscles tensed, his hands grew numb from gripping the cup so hard. "Now let go," the master said. The disciple released the cup. Instantly, the pain disappeared. "This," the master said, "is how suffering works. You hold on too tightly and it hurts, but the moment you let go, the pain stops." How often do we hold on too tightly? To relationships, to expectations, to things we think define us? And how often does that holding on create more suffering than the loss itself? Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop clinging. You stop expecting life to fit your demands, and instead, you allow it to unfold as it will. It is the ability to say, "I love you, but I do not own you. I cherish this moment, but I do not fear its end. I pursue my goals, but I am not defined by them." This mindset is what creates true peace, because when you detach from outcomes, you free yourself from unnecessary pain. But how do we practice this? How do we move from attachment to freedom? One of the most powerful tools is acceptance. A disciple once came to his master and said, "Master, I am always struggling. Life is not how I want it to be." The master smiled and said, "You suffer because you resist what is." "But I don't want to accept it," the disciple argued. "I want things to be different." The master pointed to a large rock. "Can you lift that?" The disciple shook his head. "It's too heavy." Then why waste energy trying, the master said. Why struggle against something you cannot change? Either walk around the rock or sit with it, but do not fight it. Life presents us with many rocks, situations we cannot control, outcomes we cannot predict. We can resist, complain, and exhaust ourselves trying to move what cannot be moved. Or we can accept. We can adjust. We can find another way. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. When we stop demanding that life be different from what it is, we begin to find peace in the present moment. The next time something upsets you, pause. Ask yourself, am I resisting what is? Am I trying to force something beyond my control? If the answer is yes, breathe. Let go. Trust that, like the river moving around the rock, life will find its course. Another way to cultivate detachment is through trust. A wise monk once told a story of a man dangling from the edge of a cliff. Below him was a deep valley, and above him was nothing to grab onto. He cried out, "Is anyone there? Help me!" A voice from the sky answered, "Let go!" The man hesitated. "Let go, but I'll fall!" The voice repeated, "Let go!" Terrified, the man refused. He held on until he was too exhausted, and eventually his grip slipped. But instead of falling, he realized the ground was only inches below his feet. He had been clinging in fear when all along he was safe. This is how we often live. We hold on to jobs, relationships, identities, fearing that if we let go, we will fall into the unknown. But what if the unknown is exactly where we need to be? What if, by letting go, we allow life to catch us in ways we never expected? Trusting life doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your best and then surrendering the outcome. It means planting the seed, but not forcing the flower to bloom before it's time. It means knowing that what is meant for you will find you, and what is not meant for you will leave. And in that trust, there is freedom, because when you stop trying to control everything, life becomes lighter, more peaceful, more effortless. And suddenly, you are no longer burdened by the need to hold on to things that were never yours to begin with. You walk through life with open hands, open heart, open mind. You move with life instead of against it. And that is when you truly begin to live. There is a profound peace that comes when you stop clinging to what is not meant for you. When you no longer hold on to expectations that only bring disappointment. When you no longer resist the natural unfolding of life. But most people never experience this peace because they are trapped in the illusion of control. They believe that if they plan enough, work hard enough, or worry enough, they can shape life exactly as they want it to be. But life does not work that way. Life is like the ocean, vast, unpredictable, and always changing. You cannot stop the waves from coming, but you can learn to surf. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sail. And in doing so, you stop fighting against reality and start flowing with it. A disciple once came to his master and said, "Master, I am afraid of losing what I love. I am afraid of change." The master handed him a handful of sand. "Hold it tightly," he instructed. The disciple clenched his fist, squeezing the sand as hard as he could. But the tighter he held, the more the sand slipped through his fingers. "Now open your hand," the master said. The disciple did as he was told, and the sand rested gently in his palm. "This," the master said, "is how life works. The more you try to hold on to something, the more it slips away. But when you let go, it remains." This is the secret to inner peace. Not grasping, not forcing, not fearing what will be lost, but allowing life to flow as it naturally does. So how do we cultivate this way of being? How do we move from a mindset of control to one of surrender? It begins with trust. Trust in life. Trust in yourself. Trust that everything is happening as it should. There is a Buddhist story about a farmer who lost his horse. His neighbor said, "What terrible luck." The farmer simply replied, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" The next day, the horse returned with a group of wild horses. The neighbor said, "What great luck!" Again, the farmer replied, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" Soon after, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses and fell, breaking his leg. "What terrible luck!" the neighbor exclaimed. And once more the farmer said, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" A few weeks later, soldiers came to the village to draft young men for war. Because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was spared. The neighbor marveled, "What great luck you have." And yet again the farmer said, "Luck or misfortune? Who knows?" The lesson is simple. We never truly know whether something is good or bad in the moment. What we see as a loss may later prove to be a gift. What we see as a blessing may lead to unexpected difficulty. So why waste energy judging what happens to us? Why spend our lives labeling events as good or bad when we have no way of knowing what they will lead to? Instead of resisting life, we can learn to trust it, because trust dissolves fear. When you trust that you are on the right path, even when you don't understand it, you stop panicking over every setback. You stop worrying about things that haven't happened yet. You stop fighting against the unknown. And in doing so, you find something even more valuable than certainty. You find freedom. Freedom from overthinking, freedom from stress, freedom from the need to control everything. And in that freedom, you discover a new way of living, a lighter way, a way filled with ease instead of struggle. But trust does not come naturally. It must be cultivated, like a garden. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is through meditation. A disciple once said to his master, "I try to find peace, but my mind is too restless." The master took him to a lake and asked him to stir the water. "Now look into the lake," the master said. "Can you see your reflection?" "No," the disciple replied. "The water is too disturbed." The master smiled. "Now, wait." Slowly the water settled, the ripples faded, and the surface became clear. "This," the master said, "is how the mind works. When you are restless, clarity cannot come. But when you become still, everything becomes clear." Meditation is not about stopping thoughts. It is about allowing them to settle. It is about becoming an observer rather than a participant in the endless cycle of worry and control. One of the simplest meditations is breath awareness. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes. Focus on your breath as it enters and leaves your body. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the breath. Another powerful practice is the meditation of letting go. If something is troubling you, picture yourself holding it in your hands. As you breathe out, imagine opening your hands and releasing it into the wind. Feel the weight lifting from you. Because the truth is, most of the burdens we carry are not real. They are just stories in our minds. And the moment we choose to let them go, we free ourselves. And as you continue to practice this, something shifts. You begin to react less. You begin to trust more. You begin to feel a peace that is not dependent on circumstances. And you start to understand what true strength is. Because real strength is not in controlling life. It is in trusting it. Real power is not in forcing things. It is in knowing when to let go. And real happiness is not found in certainty. It is found in surrender. Imagine waking up each day with no fear of the future, no anxiety about what will happen, no need to control everything. Imagine moving through life with ease, knowing that whatever comes, you will be okay. This is not a dream. This is what happens when you let go of control and learn to flow with life. Because peace has never been about making everything perfect. It has always been about knowing that no matter what happens, you are already whole. And once you realize that, once you truly live from that place of trust and surrender, nothing can shake you, nothing can take away your peace, and nothing can stop you from experiencing the kind of freedom that so few ever find. Because you will finally understand that you were never meant to hold on to life. You were meant to flow with it. There is a kind of peace that cannot be shaken, a stillness that exists beyond circumstances, beyond gain or loss, beyond success or failure. It is not found in controlling life, nor in forcing it to go according to our wishes, but in surrendering to its natural rhythm. The truth is, we spend so much of our lives fighting to keep things the same, fighting to prevent change, fighting against uncertainty. But all of this struggle is wasted energy because life will always unfold as it must. Whether we resist or accept, the seasons will change, the tides will rise and fall, and people will come and go. It is not the world that needs to change. It is our relationship with it. The moment we stop resisting the flow of life is the moment we begin to experience true freedom. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not caused by the events of life themselves, but by our attachment to how we think things should be. We believe that happiness comes from external stability, from holding on to what is familiar, from ensuring that nothing ever leaves or changes. But this is an illusion. Nothing in life is truly permanent. Neither joy nor sorrow, neither youth nor age, neither success nor failure. And yet, we cling to things as if they will last forever, terrified of losing what we have or of stepping into the unknown. But what if the unknown is not something to fear? What if, instead of being a place of loss, it is a place of infinite possibility? What if the very things we cling to are the same things that are holding us back from something greater? A Buddhist parable tells the story of a traveler who came across a wide river. He had no boat, no bridge, and no clear way across. Determined to reach the other side, he spent hours building a raft from logs and vines, tying them together with great effort. When he finally finished, he climbed aboard and paddled himself safely to the other shore. Relieved and grateful, he turned to his raft and thought, "This raft saved my life. I should take it with me wherever I go so that I never have to be without it." And so he hoisted the raft onto his back and continued on his journey. But the further he walked, the heavier the raft became. It slowed him down, it drained his energy, it became a burden instead of a blessing. What had once been his salvation had now turned into his suffering. How often do we do this in our own lives? We hold on to things long after they have served their purpose. We carry relationships, identities, beliefs, and attachments that once helped us but are now only weighing us down. We fear letting go because we believe we need these things to survive. But in truth, they are keeping us from moving forward. Letting go is not a loss. It is a liberation. It is understanding that just because something was once valuable does not mean it must remain with us forever. The key to inner peace is not in accumulating more, but in releasing what no longer serves us. But how do we let go? How do we stop carrying the weight of unnecessary burdens? The answer lies in presence. So much of our suffering comes from living in the past or projecting into the future. We replay old mistakes, dwell on past losses, worry about what may come next. But life is only ever happening now. The past is gone, the future is not yet here, and the only moment that truly exists is the one we are in. When we anchor ourselves in the present, we free ourselves from the illusions of the mind. We stop chasing what is not real. We stop longing for what has already passed. We stop fearing what has not yet arrived. We simply exist, fully in the here and now. Meditation is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate presence. It is not about forcing the mind to be silent, but about learning to watch it without attachment. Thoughts will come and go, like waves on the shore, but you do not need to follow them. You do not need to hold on to them. You simply observe, allowing them to pass without resistance. Over time, this practice teaches you a profound truth, that nothing in the mind is permanent, that no thought, no emotion, no fear, no desire lasts forever. They all arise and fade like clouds drifting across the sky. And when you understand this, you stop giving them power over you. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not the stories your mind creates. You are simply the awareness that watches it all. And in this awareness, you discover a kind of peace that nothing can shake. Because when you are no longer attached to every passing emotion, you become untouchable. The world may change, but your inner stillness remains. People may come and go, but your sense of self remains unshaken. Losses may happen, challenges may arise, but you do not crumble under them. You simply adapt, like water taking the shape of whatever container it is placed in. This is true strength, not in resisting, not in controlling, but in surrendering to the ever-changing flow of life. Imagine for a moment what your life would feel like if you no longer clung to anything. If you loved fully, but without fear of loss. If you pursued goals, but without attachment to the outcome. If you welcomed change instead of resisting it. If you trusted life so deeply that no matter what happened, you remained at peace. This is not a distant dream. This is what happens when you release the need to control. This is what happens when you learn to let go. And when you do, you finally understand what it means to be truly free. There is a moment in life when you realize that you no longer need to struggle, that all the grasping, all the resisting, all the fearing of the unknown has only ever caused suffering. And in that moment, something shifts inside of you. You begin to see that life has never been something to be controlled. It has always been something to be experienced. You begin to understand that peace was never something to be found outside of you. It was something you had the power to cultivate all along. And as this realization takes root, you finally allow yourself to do something you never truly did before. You let go. Letting go is not about giving up. It is not about passivity, nor is it about indifference. Letting go is about recognizing that you cannot force life to be something it is not. It is about accepting that people come and go, that change is inevitable, that some things are meant to fall away, not as punishment, but as part of the natural flow of existence. Letting go is about surrendering, not to weakness, but to the wisdom of knowing that life will unfold exactly as it is meant to, whether you resist it or not. And when you let go, when you release your grip on what you think should happen, something incredible takes place. You create space, space for peace, space for clarity, space for something new to enter. There is a Buddhist parable about a man who was holding onto a branch at the edge of a cliff. He had slipped while walking, and now he was dangling in midair, gripping the branch with all his strength. Terrified, he shouted, "Help! Is anyone there?" A voice called back, "Let go!" The man hesitated. "But if I let go, I will fall." The voice simply repeated, "Let go." The man was too afraid, so he clung to the branch for as long as he could. But eventually exhaustion took over, and his grip loosened. He fell, only to land safely on solid ground just a few feet below. All along, he had been safe, but his fear had blinded him to the truth. This is how we live our lives, clutching onto things we think we need, afraid that if we release them, we will be lost. We hold on to relationships that no longer nurture us. We cling to beliefs that no longer serve us. We stay in situations that drain us, simply because the idea of stepping into the unknown feels more terrifying than staying in discomfort. But what if the thing you are afraid to let go of is the very thing holding you back? What if, instead of falling, you are meant to rise? Trust is the foundation of letting go. Trust in life. Trust in yourself. Trust that whatever is meant for you will stay, and whatever is not will leave. This trust is not something you develop overnight. It is something you cultivate moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. It is something you strengthen by practicing presence. Because presence teaches you that no matter what happens, no matter what changes, you are always okay in this moment. Presence teaches you that life is not about controlling what comes next. It is about showing up fully for what is happening now. A wise monk once told his disciple, "Do not chase the past. Do not worry about the future. Instead, let your mind settle in the present. Like a rock sinking to the bottom of a river, the water will flow around it, but the rock remains still." This is the essence of inner peace. To be so rooted in yourself that no external force can disturb you. To be so present in the moment that no fear of the future can shake you. To be so accepting of what is that nothing needs to be different for you to feel whole. But how do we cultivate this? How do we train ourselves to release the habit of clinging and embrace the art of surrender? One of the most powerful practices is self-inquiry. Ask yourself, what am I afraid to let go of? What do I believe I need to be happy? What story is my mind telling me about why I cannot be at peace right now? Because often it is not reality that causes suffering. It is the stories we tell ourselves about reality. We tell ourselves that if we lose something, we will be incomplete. We tell ourselves that if things do not go as planned, we will fail. We tell ourselves that if we do not control every detail, everything will fall apart. But none of these things are true. They are only thoughts, only illusions created by the mind. And the moment you stop believing them, you are free. Meditation is another path to letting go. It teaches you to observe thoughts without becoming attached to them. Imagine watching leaves floating down a river. You do not reach for them. You do not try to stop them. You simply let them pass. This is how you must learn to treat your thoughts. Observing them, acknowledging them, but not holding on to them. And as you practice this, as you learn to sit in stillness without reacting to every thought, something changes. Your mind becomes quieter. Your emotions become steadier. You begin to understand on a deep level that nothing external has the power to disrupt your inner peace. Only your attachment to it does. And once you realize this, once you fully embody this truth, you stop reacting to life with fear. You stop grasping. You stop resisting. Instead, you move through the world with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, you will handle it. That no matter what you gain or lose, you remain whole. That no matter how unpredictable life may be, you are always exactly where you are meant to be. Imagine for a moment what your life would feel like if you lived this way. If you no longer worried about things you cannot control. If you no longer feared losing what was never truly yours to keep. If you no longer needed things to be perfect in order to be happy. What would that kind of freedom feel like? What would that kind of peace look like? Because the truth is, this freedom is not some distant dream. It is available to you right now in this very moment. All you have to do is let go. Let go of the past. Let go of the need to control the future. Let go of the idea that peace is something you have to chase. Because the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop grasping, the moment you surrender to what is, you will find that peace has been with you all along. You will find that you were never lost, never broken, never incomplete. You will find that everything you have been searching for has been within you all this time. And once you see that, once you truly understand it, you will never again be afraid of letting go. Because you will know that you are not losing anything. You are simply returning to yourself. There is a moment in every journey where you realize that you have spent your life gripping too tightly, holding on to control, onto people, onto expectations, onto fears disguised as certainty. And then one day you begin to wonder, what if everything I thought I needed was never really mine to hold? What if the peace I have been searching for was never about gaining more, but about surrendering everything unnecessary? What if instead of carrying the weight of expectations, I simply set it down and walked forward, unburdened? That is the moment everything changes, because that is the moment you stop clinging to life and start living it. Letting go is not an easy path, not because it is difficult in itself, but because we have conditioned ourselves to believe that holding on is necessary. We convince ourselves that attachment equals love, that control equals security, that planning for every possible outcome will protect us from suffering. But suffering does not come from what happens to us. It comes from our resistance to what is. It comes from expecting permanence in a world that is built on impermanence. It comes from fearing change when change is the only certainty we will ever have. A wise master once said, "You only suffer because you want things to be different from how they are." At first, this may seem too simple to be true. But if you reflect deeply, you will see that all suffering is rooted in resistance. We want people to behave differently. We want situations to unfold according to our wishes. We want life to bend to our will. And when it does not, we feel frustrated, anxious, and lost. But what if we stopped expecting life to conform to us? What if, instead of fighting reality, we embraced it fully? Imagine standing in the middle of a river, trying to stop the current with your hands. No matter how strong you are, the water will keep moving. It does not care about your resistance. It does not stop because you demand it to. And the more you fight, the more exhausted you become. But if you were to relax, to release your grip, to allow yourself to be carried by the flow, you would move effortlessly without struggle. This is the difference between attachment and surrender. Attachment is trying to control the current. Surrender is trusting that wherever the river takes you is exactly where you need to be. But trust does not come naturally to the mind. The mind craves certainty. It thrives on control. It finds comfort in planning. But control is an illusion. The truth is, we are never really in control of anything except ourselves, our choices, our reactions, our ability to let go. Everything else, people, events, the unfolding of life, will happen as they are meant to, whether we resist or accept. And so, the greatest act of power is not in controlling life, but in learning to trust it. A monk once told his disciple, "When you fight reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time." This means that no matter how much you resist, no matter how much you try to control outcomes, life will continue on its own terms. But the moment you accept what is, the moment you release your expectations, the moment you trust in the unfolding of life, you are free. You are free from the chains of anxiety, free from the weight of unnecessary suffering, free to move forward without resistance. One of the greatest lessons of detachment is understanding that not everything is meant to stay. People come and go, experiences arise and fade, opportunities present themselves and then pass. Clinging to what is meant to leave only causes pain. But when you trust that what is meant for you will find you, that what leaves is making space for something better, that nothing truly belongs to you except this moment, you begin to live with a lightness that cannot be disturbed. A disciple once asked his master, "How can I learn to let go?" The master handed him a cup of tea and kept pouring even after it was full. The tea overflowed, spilling everywhere. The disciple pulled back, confused. "Master, the cup is full." The master smiled and said, "And yet you are still trying to hold more." Your mind is the same. When it is filled with attachment, there is no room for anything new. Only when you empty the cup can you receive more. How many times do we hold on to things that no longer serve us, simply because we are afraid of what will happen if we let go? How many times do we say yes to people who drain us, to situations that deplete us, to paths that no longer align with who we are, just because we fear the emptiness that might follow if we release them? But what if that emptiness is not something to fear? What if it is the space where something greater can finally enter? Letting go is not losing, it is making room. It is choosing peace over chaos, trust over fear, freedom over attachment. It is recognizing that you do not need to carry every burden, respond to every conflict, fight every battle. You are allowed to set things down. You are allowed to release. You are allowed to walk away from anything that disrupts your inner peace. But letting go is not just about what you release externally. It is also about what you release internally. The expectations you place on yourself, the guilt you carry from past mistakes, the need to prove yourself to others, the belief that you are only worthy if you achieve more, do more,